All right, folks, buckle up, because we're diving deep into a real head-scratcher today.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
It is. We're talking about the disappearance of Brandon Swanson.
Okay, I know the name.
Yeah, it's been all over the news for years, but for anyone just tuning in, he was 19, went missing in rural Minnesota back in 2008 after his car got stuck. And what makes this case so baffling is that he was on the phone with his dad almost the entire time he was missing.
Wow, so we actually have some pretty detailed accounts of what happened leading up to his disappearance.
We do. We've got firsthand sources, phone records, the whole 9 yards, and we're here to try and untangle it all with you.
Sounds like we have our work cut out for us.
We do. The big question is, if he was talking to his dad, describing his surroundings, why couldn't anyone find him?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Let's dive in and see if we can make sense of it all.
Okay.
So picture this. It's May 13th, 2008, late at night. Brandon's driving home after being out with some friends.
Just a normal night.
Exactly. And he ends up on this gravel road near Corder, Minnesota. His car gets stuck.
Oh, man. I know the feeling rural roads can be tricky, especially at night.
You're telling me I've been there a time or two myself.
But anyway, so this seems like a pretty straightforward situation, right?
You'd think so. A little inconvenient, but nothing too serious.
Yeah.
But here's where things get really strange. Around midnight, he calls his parents.
Okay, so he's reaching out for help?
Right. But here's the thing. He's convinced he's somewhere near Lind, a town that's actually miles away from his real location.
So already some confusion about his whereabouts.
Major confusion. And get this. He stays on the line with his dad for almost 47 minutes, walking, trying to find his way, describing landmarks as he goes.
So almost like we have a verbal map of his movements.
Almost. But it's a map that leads to a dead end.
Okay, so we've got this phone call that paints a pretty vivid picture of what's happening, but then it just stops.
It does. And that's the part that really gets me. He's talking to his dad, listing off things he sees. And then suddenly his last words are, "Oh, sheet." And the line goes dead.
Chills, literally chills.
Right. I mean, what does that tell us about his state of mind at those final moments?
Well, it's clearly a shift from the relative calm he had at the beginning of the call. You know, he was frustrated about being stuck, but he was still trying to figure things out.
Yeah, he was problem solving.
Exactly. But then something changes, and it's a pretty drastic change.
Yeah, and we're left wondering what could have possibly caused that sudden fear, panic, whatever it was.
Exactly. Did he realize he was in danger? Did he see something or someone? Or what, was it something completely different? We just don't know.
We don't. And to make things even weirder, his phone stayed active for a while after that call dropped, pinging off a tower near Minnesota.
Wait, Minnesota, that's not even close to where his car was found, right?
Nope, not even close. Remember, he thought he was by Lind, but his car was found near Porter, and Minnesota is a whole other town in a different direction.
So was he still moving? Was someone else with the phone? It just adds another layer of mystery to this whole thing.
Right. The next day, his car is found right where he left it. No signs of a struggle. No indication of what happened to him.
So naturally, a massive search effort gets underway.
Oh, yeah. They had hundreds of volunteers, search and rescue teams. Even the FBI got involved.
And what was their main focus?
Well, based on what Brandon had said during that phone call about seeing the Yellow Medicine River, they concentrated their search efforts in that area.
And that makes sense given the information they had at the time, but knowing now that his phone pinged near Minnesota, does that suggest they might have been looking in the wrong place?
It's definitely a possibility. You know, those rural areas can be vast and dense, especially around rivers.
Yeah, it's easy to imagine how things could get overlooked, especially if they're primarily focused on one specific location.
And then you have to factor in the weather conditions, the time of year. It all adds to the complexity of the search.
Absolutely. And on top of all that, you have the added frustration of the 9/11 delay.
Exactly. So Brandon's parents called for help as soon as that phone call dropped. But because he was 19, there was some hesitation from the authorities.
Really? Why?
Well, they initially assumed he might just be out with friends, blowing off some steam, typical young adult behavior in their mind.
Oh, I see. So they didn't immediately grasp the seriousness of the situation?
Exactly. And that delay, even if it was just a few hours, could have been crucial in those early stages of a missing persons case.
Absolutely. Every minute counts when someone vanishes, especially in a situation like this.
And sadly, this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think.
You're right. There's often a bias when it comes to missing young adults, this assumption that they're invincible or always up to something harmless.
Exactly. But those assumptions can have tragic consequences.
No doubt. And in Brandon's case, it just adds another layer of what ifs to an already heartbreaking situation.
It really does. So here we are all these years later, and still no trace of Brandon, no physical evidence, no witnesses, just a whole lot of questions and speculation.
It's truly a baffling case. What do you think makes cases like this so difficult to solve?
Well, I think the lack of evidence is a huge factor. Without any physical clues, clothing, belongings, signs of a struggle, it's incredibly hard to piece together what might have happened.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Exactly. And you're left with all these theories, but no real way to confirm or deny any of them.
So what would it take for there to be a breakthrough in a case like this? What kind of new information could potentially lead to answers?
Well, I think a witness coming forward, someone who remembers seeing something unusual that night, could be huge. Even the smallest detail could be significant.
True, and technology is always advancing. Maybe there's a way to reanalyze the existing evidence. The phone records the terrain around where his car was found and uncover something new.
It's a long shot, but you never know.
Never say never, right?
Exactly. All right, so listeners, what are your thoughts? Anything in particular that jumped out at you about this case? What's your gut feeling about what might have happened to Brandon?
Yeah, we'd love to hear your theories. And while you're pondering that, I've got a question for you all. What's one aspect of this case that you think deserves more attention from investigators, and what new leads could that potentially generate?
It's a great question, and one that I hope sparks some interesting discussions.
Me too. Sometimes it's the smallest details that can crack a case wide open.
Absolutely. Even though it's been years, it's never too late for someone to come forward with information, keep Brandon's story alive, keep asking questions, and never give up hope.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today, folks. Until next time, stay curious.
And stay safe out there.